My name is Abubakar Salim. I'm an actor and a game developer. On the acting side, you might have seen me in Raised by Wolves, House of the Dragon, which is going to be coming out very soon, and Assassin's Creed Origins. On the game development side, I am the founder of Surgent Studios and our debut game, Tales of Kenzera Zao. So Tales of Kenzera Zao is a action-adventure platformer. It's a side-scroller, very much inspired by Bantu myths and legends, but truly, ultimately, it's inspired by the journey of grief that I personally felt when I was going through it after having lost my father to cancer.
And at the Game Awards, that was a very emotional moment. Can you tell us a bit about what that was like?
Yeah, I think the Game Awards was one of those ones where it was very surreal. I didn't really know what to expect. I knew I had to go on stage and announce this game, but really, truly, what sort of drove me forward or inspired me to kind of do it was because I guess I just wanted to be honest. You know, the whole process of making this game and sharing this story and it coming from such a personal place has been really to connect with other people who are going on a similar journey or who have experienced a similar thing. You know, grief it's an isolating feeling, it's an isolating experience. Announcing this very heartfelt sort of reasoning as to why this game is coming to fruition, but also at the same time the game being quite cool and actiony and quite visually stunning. It was just, as I say, like, it was surreal. It was incredible, and the reception has been wild. It's been really, really lovely. So I've just completed one of the tutorials here and showed essentially Kalunga, who I'm going on this journey with, that I am basically a good fighter, and I'm willing to, go through the test of essentially bringing my father back from the realm of the dead. I've just showed him the Mask of the Moon, which is essentially a range attacker, and the power of what it can do. You can aim with it and fire it that way and do all sorts of cool stuff. But yeah, this is just at the beginning of the journey. The thing that I love about games is it's a very active medium, in the sense that, with film and TV, you as the audience member, you're sitting and you're watching something and you're being given the information. Whereas with games, you are actively actually jumping in the shoes of these characters. You're going on a journey with them and you're evolving with them. And I think like that, to me, is what's really powerful, because you as the actual audience member, as a player, it's between you and that character. And it has just such more of an impact. I guess it's because I think, there is this sense of people realizing that games are an art. It's an expression. It's an interactive art. And having a connection like that, having an emotional connection to driving through with creating a piece of art is always, amazing. It's the same way of looking at film or TV or even reading a book.
There are lots of different ways that you could have told this story. Why was it important to base it on Bantu cultures and mythologies?
Really, truly, the way that we started with this game was it had to be about grief. It had to be the journey of grief. And you're right, that could be anything. It could be anywhere. It could be either Greek mythology, Norse mythology. But the reason why I wanted to go down the Bantu route is because it was really inspired by the stories that my father would tell me as a kid. He would tell me and share these stories of these Bantu legends and myths. My grandfather was an Nganga, which is like a traditional spiritual healer. And so my father would share these really kind of cool sort of worlds and ideas. And because the game is about that journey of grief, that kind of connection between me and my dad, it had to exist in this space. And the one thing that I've also found as well, especially within Bantu cultures, be it either, Zulu, Xhosa, even with my own, like, sort of the Kenyan background, death isn't necessarily seen as an end. It's a beginning of something. And that's kind of why the protagonist in the game feels like they could bring their father back from the realm of the dead. So I think like it was really important to kind of look at that and honor that and respect that, but also celebrate it, because you don't really necessarily see a lot of it. So like that's something that I really wanted to kind of push forward with.
A lot of people already know a lot about Norse mythology or Greek mythology. They won't necessarily know a lot about Bantu mythologies. Did you feel any extra responsibility taking on and telling those stories?
Yes and no. I think, like, for me, it was important to obviously depict it in an honest and truthful way, but at the same time, I didn't want to be teaching people. Again, this experience isn't necessarily to educate, it's more of a sense to celebrate it. It's to kind of get people excited about the stories that can be told within a Bantu setting. So, like, for me, it was one of those ones where, and I remember telling the team this, in order to depict a story and depict it really well and powerfully, you want people to be excited by, for example, like what an Impundulu is. You introduce an Impundulu, you have your own take creatively as what an Impundulu is, and then you get people to Google it, for example. They'll get to go down this wiki wormhole, we used to say. So yeah, there's definitely this element of a responsibility to it, but at the same time, again, as I say, like it isn't really your job to educate. It's there to essentially give enough of a push so then people can go look into it themselves, or even be inspired by the idea of making even their own take on what that myth is, you know?
The whole game can be played in Swahili
Yes.
as well, which is very cool. Yeah. What point was that decision made? Was that always going to be in the game?
That from the get-go. You know, Swahili, it was important to have the game in Swahili because, again, this is the language that my father would speak to me in, and the language that my family talked to me in, and the language that I speak. So it was important to have this game in Swahili because it's honest, it's true. It throws you in the world. It keeps you in that world, and it's this is the world that we exist in, you know, in this space. You know, I feel like that's been something that I've really wanted to play and enjoy, you know. Is like, again, that immersion of the story and hearing the language as well. It's almost like a music to it as well, especially when you don't know what's being said, but you can read it and understand it to a degree. So yeah, that's been a really integral part of the experience as a whole.
I'm going to generalize a tiny bit. As an actor, you probably get told what to do a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But now you're the boss.
Yeah.
What's it been like adjusting to that change?
Oh man, I still get told what to do all the time. Like, it's like there's no difference there, man. I think the difference. All right, look, I'd say the difference really is ultimately like, as be it either I'm an actor or I'm a boss. The ultimately it's all about listening. So like for me, I have to listen to my team because they know better than I do. A company is a group of people. It isn't just me, right? So it's important to essentially do that and listen to that and be truthful to, again, people of the feedback that they give you. And sometimes it is hard to hear, you know, that you're wrong. That's totally fine. But it's better to know that you're wrong and be told that you're wrong honestly, rather than necessarily people just blindly saying yes to you and going forward with it, you know? So yeah, I'd say like there is barely any difference there. I still am told what to do, and you know, ultimately I think the responsibility again as the boss is like, there's a lot more at stake with you making terrible decisions. So it's just better to listen to people from the get-go.
You will have gone on a journey making the game. I'm wondering, what did you learn about grief, and is there anything new that you also learned about your dad?
Yeah, I think, you know, for me, I feel like I'm still learning. I think it's one of those ones which the one thing that I feel like I've learned anyway is that you can never, it's not about accepting it really, or kind of getting over it in a way. You kind of have to learn to live with it. You have to learn to be comfortable with it to a degree. The whole journey of making this game has really sort of taught me that we're all in it together in a way. We're all just living our lives, and sort of these elements and things happen, and it's good to share. It's good to talk. I think, you know, when it first happened, I was very much of the mentality of like, I'm going to be okay, and sort of, you know, soldiered on. And it was only until I actually started talking and sharing it with other people and connecting with other people who had either gone through a similar thing or not at all even, where I actually started to heal. And I think the things that have kind of happened to me after the process of actually being able to accept, like, oh, I can actually talk about this and it's okay to not be okay, it's made me also look at my father in a different light, and made me actually celebrate his life rather than wish to kind of have him back all the time. And look, don't get me wrong, it would be lovely for him to still be here. But at the same time, I always say, and I think this process of this game, you know, it's made me realize that actually, if it wasn't for that event, I wouldn't be where I am now. I wouldn't, you know, have my wife, you know, have my daughter. I wouldn't be, you know, doing the work that I do in the way that it's influenced by it. So I think like that's really, you know, one of those big lessons that I'm still learning and going along as I go through it all as a whole.